The Midnight Zone by Kysilar. It's a common saying that only 5% of the Earth's oceans have been explored. The other 95% has remained hidden beneath the crushing depths where no man ever dared venture. That was until a team of brilliant scientists working together with Phil Nynutitin developed a new version of his previously commercialized exosuit, one capable of allowing a man to roam the ocean depths up to 4,000 meters deep. Maybe it was the desire to uncover some hidden treasures like the pirates in the stories of old, or maybe it was the desire to be on the cover of some scientific magazine as one of the people who uncovered another secret of the ocean. I never quite managed to pin it down, but when I was contacted for a job working together with the Institute of Marine Science based in Auckland, New Zealand, for a deep-sea exploration, I didn't hesitate for a second. It was June the 2nd, and Captain Montgomery's mood was ecstatic. After weeks of bureaucracy, he had finally acquired the paperwork he needed to set off on this expedition. Recent tremors had uncovered an anomaly within the Pacific Ocean, a large body of water that was brinier and heavier than the ocean water just above it. It could only be classified as an underwater ocean just a few miles off the Hikurangi Trench. And while the Institute was more than excited to get to work and lay bare what had remained hidden for so long, they could do nothing but wait patiently for the government to approve their request. Today would be our first expedition into this unexplored depths. Jason, one of the biologists, shared an envious glance with me while helping me into the suit. You will be the first to dive into this wonder of nature. Please do not harm any of the creatures down there if you can avoid it. I'll be looking forward to any samples that you bring up. We performed our final checks, made sure that the umbilical cord was in perfect condition, and started the expedition. My heart pounded as the strained sound of the winch lifting me up echoed in my helmet. Staring down, I could see the first outlines of the calm sea below me. The winch released with a sudden tug and then lowered me down gently into the ocean blue. Those of you who have dived before, be it snorkeling or deep-sea diving, know the feeling of submerging yourself below the water's surface. It's as if you've entered a portal into a whole new world, one vast and empty. In the distance, I saw a school of anchovies swimming in a seemingly uncoordinated mess, the sun reflecting on their silvery scales. For a moment, I forgot about the weightless feeling of my body sinking lower below the ocean's surface. One small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind, Captain Montgomery jokingly said into my comms. Be safe out there, kid. Remember, you have 50 hours of oxygen, and scrubbers will give you an extra 50. But if all goes well, we only need about a quarter of that at best. Just don't go chasing any mermaids. Not having solid ground beneath your feet for such a long time can be rightly terrifying. It requires a great deal of willpower to repress any anxiety. To see the shape of a creature twice the size of you lunging at you to take an initial bite out of you, testing whether your taste aligns with their palate, and if you will end up as their next meal. As the light dimmed, the deeper I sunk. I turned on the lamps on the exosuit's shoulders for extra visibility. The rest of the way down was monotone in a way. There was nothing but the endless waters gradually becoming darker until it was as if night itself had swallowed me whole. I looked at my depth meter as it ticked past 2,000. I've reached the midnight zone, I reported back to headquarters. Visibility is about 15 meters, give or take. Copy that, the captain replied, his voice already strained and distant by the thousands of tons of water separating my radio from his. About 200 meters until you reach the water surface of the ocean. I used the suit's thrusters to slow down my descent, making sure to follow all of the safety protocols I was made aware of during the mission briefing and training. The suit drifted down until I was finally eye to eye with the massive body of water. Its darker color floated idly, unable to escape from the lighter water pressing down upon it. It lapped against the ocean floor, creating an underwater beach from which you could jump into the unknown depths of this pit. I'm breaking the surface now, I reported back. The suit dove underneath the darkened water, sending me into yet another world, one that no man had ever laid eyes upon. A vertical cliff 400 meters down led me to the sandy floor. I steered myself onto the soft landing with the thrusters, looking around with stiff mechanical movements. I've touched down.
Visibility is about 10 meters. Starting to take samples from the soil, and will report if I find any life forms."
Their answer was a static, hushed tone of which I could barely understand.
Copy that. Good luck.
But I paid it no mind, and I carried on. As glamorous as it sounds right now, at this point I was simply taking bits of sand and rock and putting it into a sterile container, making sure that it, nor the sample, nor the water of the underground ocean was contaminated when I would raise to the surface and hand it over to be tested. There was no light there but my torches, so plant growth was non-existent. But there was a chance I would be able to find deep-sea creatures, which was the top priority during this expedition. I never anticipated to run into anything given the visibility and vastness of the underground ocean, but to my surprise, at the far edge of my illumination, a gray outline contrasted against the pearly white sands. I approached the object, caution drawing over my body. I stopped about 5 paces away from it. A lifeless, grotesquely misshapen eel about the size of my leg lay on the ocean floor. Tiny dots that resembled eyes staring blankly into mine. Its stunted snout parted slightly as if it were trying to say something. Needle-like teeth glistened in the beam of my flashlight. I can't rightly tell you what felt more terrifying, that its lower half was ripped to shreds, or that the wounds looked fresh. My eyes darted around, looking for anything that would have caused this. The visor of my helmet started fogging up as my breathing grew heavier and more erratic. I quickly moved to secure the lifeless corpse using one of the bigger hazard bags that came down with me, my focus constantly shifting between the lifeless corpse and the dark, endless expanse before me. From the corner of my eye, I saw a black, veiny tendril slithering over my helmet. I heard a knocking sound from the back of my head and strenuously managed to turn around only to come face to face with what would become my worst nightmare. A black, ghoulish creature, no larger than a child, hissed violently as soon as it was bask in the light my suit cast out. Bony, slender hands ending in knife-like claws protected its face, whilst it swept its tail to get away from me. I kept aiming my beam of light at it, but it was simply too fast for me to keep up with. It swept out of my line of sight, and before I could react, I heard a bashing to my side. One of my flashlights flickered and died as the creature tore it off of my suit. My breath grew heavy, the exosuit altering from a device built to keep me alive to a tomb which the creature attempted to tear me out of. I activated my thrusters, and with a violent jerk, my feet left the ground, but it did not deter the vile being that was stalking me. I managed to capture it within the light for a second before it wrestled free from the illuminated clutches. I felt it bore into my side, tearing away at the joints of the suit. With the slow, robotic arm, I attempted to grab it, but suddenly, it came to a halt. Sparks of electricity briefly lit up the second creature, biting feverishly into the claws at the exterior of the suit's arms, tearing it free and sending it off into the ocean floor now several feet beneath us. When the flashlight got blocked by another one of those monsters, I broke and I started to scream, "Get me out! Get me out, please!" The second flashlight flickered with strenuous effort, and with a loud mechanical tearing echoing through my suit, my last source of light drifted to the bottom. I was absolutely defenseless now, and my fate was sealed. The dim light in my helmet illuminated my surroundings just enough for me to see the horrific sight of these things swarming all over my suit. Their number had more than doubled by now. I could hear them tearing at the joints of my suit, biting into the titanium plating and finding a way inside. Their claw-like fingers scratched at my visor, blurring everything into a tangled black mess, hungering for my flesh. There was nothing I could do. My begging and pleading fell on deaf ears. Outside, I could hear the tearing and moaning of my suit ready to give out. Falling under the immense pressure of the ocean's crushing depths, I closed my eyes, praying silently and hoping that the water would get to me first, that I would be able to drown before I'd feel the hundreds of claws digging into my flesh, ripping me open as I screamed my last, unheard wails of agony. I don't know how long had passed, nor can I say when exactly I realized that my surroundings were completely silent again. But when I opened my eyes, I released a gasp of pure, unadulterated relief. The faintest glimmer of the sunlight was caressing my face, and the shine only got brighter as the winch pulled me up further by my umbilical. Below me, the dark waters loomed, threatening. Its creatures basked and bound by the darkness it provided. Everything that happened after that was a blur. The rhythmical squawking of seagulls woke me up a day later. I opened my eyes. The bottom of my view was restricted by an oxygen mask, which I promptly took off. I rubbed my aching head, pensively going over the horrifying memories that still lingered in my head. It must have been O2 poisoning. The mechanics didn't check the suit properly. I could have died. At least they hadn't messed up the carbon detector. The alarm it had sent to headquarters was likely what had caused them to winch me up when they did. I took a moment to calm down. I put on my clothes and decided to get some fresh air and the sun, and I thought that would do me good. The instant I stepped outside, the sun kissed my face and the cool ocean breeze perked me up right away. I took a stroll on the deck, searching for anything I could help with, but the crew all looked at me with wary eyes. Even Captain Montgomery, who to this point had always had a corny joke to share, greeted me with a solemn nod. I finally managed to get a hold of Jonas and asked him if the samples came up with anything. He smiled at me, hiding a discomfort that was clearly plastered on his face. "We're going to head back to shore in about an hour, so we'll be doing tests once we've reached the mainland." When I asked him if he knew the reason for our premature return, I caught him sharing a quick glance with the captain, who sternly nodded no. He looked back at me, casting his eyes down as to shield them from my questioning look, and answered that he had no idea why we were leaving so soon. Feeling slightly frustrated, I went below deck. My stomach had been growling for the last hour, and I was ready to eat a 10-course meal. I passed through the storage facility, already mentally preparing my stomach for the slob that our cook had to have tossed together. And that's when I saw it. In horrified disbelief, I stared at the exosuit. It had been taken apart and set aside, but no feat of engineering could ever hide the claw marks digging deep into the outer shell of the suit. The flashlights were missing, and the arms were twisted into tangled mess. I walked closer. My lip quivered as I traced my fingers over the scars lining the metal plating. I dug my finger into the teeth marks that were buried deep into the joints, having torn off a fair few pieces of the exterior rubber joints. Dread flushed over my body as I was reminded of the horrible reality that I had just experienced, and no amount of carbon dioxide poisoning could have made me dream of those things. The moment I set foot on the shore of New Zealand, I left the company, and I never once contacted them again. And to those of you with dreams of uncovering the secrets of the Earth's oceans, for your own safety, never descend to where the light can't reach you. Some secrets are not meant to be uncovered.